Welcome to today's Chronicles of Heroes. Episode 2, The Candle and the Dream, The Hidden Fire. In the quiet corners of a small, dusty village, young William Kumuyi's world was defined by the sound of grinding poverty. His parents, though deeply loving and faithful, had little to offer beyond the basics: a roof over their heads, a modest meal, and the warmth of constant prayers. To many, life in a small village like Arunwan meant there was little room for big dreams. But for William, dreams were the one thing his circumstances could never take away. While the world around him seemed to be limited to the same repetitive patterns of labor and survival, young William felt a pull toward something larger, a pull toward education, toward knowledge. At an age when most children were simply learning to survive, William began learning to question. He sought to understand not just the lessons in his small village school, but the big questions. Why are things the way they are? What more is there beyond the world I know? His school, if you could call it that, was little more than a dilapidated building with a dirt floor, its walls cracked with age and neglect. The classroom furniture was crude, worn wooden benches that creaked with each shift of a student's weight, chalkboards faded from years of use. There were no luxuries here. The textbooks were few, often outdated, and the resources were almost non-existent. But despite the lack of material wealth, there was one thing that was never in short supply in the Kumuyi household: faith. And in the classroom, where poverty had stifled the voices of many, William's faith was a quiet spark that refused to be extinguished. He didn't have the latest books or the most modern tools, but his mind was like a sponge, soaking up knowledge wherever he could find it. His father's modest collection of textbooks became his treasures, each page a window to a world far beyond his small village. He read with passion, often staying up late into the night, hunched over a flickering oil lamp, absorbing every word with a thirst that could never be quenched. As his curiosity grew, so did his dreams. William's world was still confined by the narrow boundaries of his village, but his imagination reached far beyond. He dreamed of a world where knowledge was not a privilege of the rich, but a birthright of the determined. He saw education as the key that could unlock doors to opportunities that had been closed to him and others like him. While most children in his village were content with learning how to farm, trade, or manage households, William yearned for something deeper, a place in the world that could only be attained through knowledge. He dreamt of higher education, of a future where he would not be bound by the limits of his circumstances. But that dream seemed impossible. To pursue an education beyond what his local school offered would take more than just willpower. It would take an enormous sacrifice. His family had no money to send him to a better school, let alone to a university. Every naira was stretched thin, just enough to cover the basics. It was a cruel truth that many children in villages like his never saw beyond their immediate environment, forced into lives of manual labor or trade from an early age. Yet William's quiet ambition burned fiercely. He would not be silenced by poverty. Instead of feeling defeated by his circumstances, he leaned into them. His struggles only made the dream brighter, the fire within him hotter. The whispers of doubt that came from those around him were drowned out by the voice of purpose that called him to greater things. Each day, he took advantage of the few opportunities available. Every bit of free time was spent in study, whether it was reading the few available books or learning from his teacher's meager resources. And when the village school day ended, he would sneak away to the home of a local elder, a former teacher who had retired but still had knowledge to share. William devoured the lessons in mathematics, science, and literature, subjects that seemed as distant as the stars but that now glimmered within his reach. For William, education wasn't just about learning facts. It was about changing his destiny. And it was through self-discipline and unshakable determination that the fire of his dream began to burn ever brighter, even in the harshest of conditions. One day, something extraordinary happened. His hard work and dedication caught the attention of one of his teachers, who saw beyond the boy's humble appearance. This teacher, seeing something special in William, helped him apply for a scholarship to attend one of Nigeria's more prestigious schools, the University of Ibadan, a university that seemed worlds away from the dirt roads of a Runwan. It was an opportunity that could change everything. This moment, this one act of kindness, would prove to be the turning point in William's life. It was the first spark of recognition that his dream could actually become a reality. William's journey was no longer just a boy's daydream. It was now a mission, a calling, a chance to prove that no one, no matter how humble their beginnings, was bound by the limits of their circumstances. And so, against all odds, William Folorunso Kumuyi stepped into uncharted territory where few dare to go. With nothing but his books, his faith, and an unrelenting dream, he set out on a path that would take him to places no one in his village could ever imagine, and he would one day become a beacon of hope for millions.